Hello and welcome to the Change Institute's second webinar, Change and Resistance, an Inseparable Couple. My name is Simon Haller. I'm the Program Development Manager here at the Change Institute. With the Change Institute, we're working on creating development opportunities for individuals as well as organizations around organizational change. To do so, we're developing education and training programs, resources, and events such as this, as well as a community platform where global knowledge exchange, as well as connections between people involved and interested in organizational change, takes place. If you want to find out more about the Change Institute, please visit our website, change-institute.org. Or, as you can find the comments in the links, follow our social media on LinkedIn or Facebook to stay up to date with all the programs we're going to launch next year, as well as up to date with the webinars that are also lined up for next year already. While we're developing our educational offer with the Change Institute, we want to follow our purpose through webinars such as this, bringing experts in to talk to you about relevant topics around organizational change. Today's topic, change resistance or change and resistance, I think is relevant and probably very, very familiar to everybody who was already involved in any change initiative from one way or the other. It is certainly most commonly cited as one of the major hurdles for successful change initiatives. A survey conducted by KPMG Vietnam just this summer with real estate organizations showed that change resistance is still among the top 3 barriers to technology implementations. The Business Agility Report 2022, a report surveying over 290 organizations worldwide who are in the process of transforming to much more agility, business agility, has cited resistance to change as the biggest challenge on those journeys ever since the survey started 2018. So as we can see, the topic is very, very relevant to anybody involved or interested in organizational change. Therefore, I'm specifically happy that we were able to bring one of the leading experts on the topic and on organizational change here to speak to you in cooperation with the Change Institute on the topic. Dr. Greiner is one of the partners of Heitger Plus by KPMG and has over 20 years of experience consulting both owner-led organizations as well as large corporations. Heitger Plus by KPMG describe themselves as pioneers in their thinking, masters in their craft, and artists in their hearts. It is the combination of the international expertise of KPMG with the agile, lively, and somewhat more startup spirit of a boutique consultancy focused on change, leadership, agility, and digital transformations. In his role as a partner, Dr. Greiner is supporting executives in bringing about and implementing important decisions, strengthening them in their role and in their development. He accompanies the development of both the personal and the organizational level, and does so by creating safe spaces where difficult issues can really be dealt with in a trusting manner. Dr. Greiner is driven by contributing to organizations becoming a place where people can find their meaning and realize their full potential. So he's working on eye level, always with mutual trust, and tries to remain in a beginner's mindset. So without any further ado, please join me in welcoming Dr. Greiner to the stage. Welcome, Tony.
Thanks a lot for this kind introduction. Great to be here.
Thank you so much. As I said, it's really a privilege and an honor to have you join us here today. I think both with your background from Heitger and of course now with joint forces with KPMG, there are not many experts that come to mind when we talk about organizational change. And of course, as part of that, the change resistance topic that you will touch upon today. So thank you very much. I don't want to hold up anybody else. I think everybody who's here came here to see and hear you talk, not me. So enjoy the presentation.
All very fine. Thank you very much, Simon, for the kind introduction and also invitation, of course. It's a pleasure to be here and to share some thoughts on how to deal best with resistance. And I would like to take you on a journey that I have gone through as well, and spotting out some aspects which I find after this 20 years of experience very important, actually. And I would like also to combine it with some practical hints and tips of how you can really deal in everyday change business. I would consider it with resistance. So, but let us just start away with a quick overview. So what do I have in store? I would like to make a preface note, actually. Then I would like to talk a little about the attitude behind dealing with resistance and some working hypotheses which are helpful from my perspective. Of course, symptoms of resistance, how you can detect, how you can observe resistance as well, and some useful questions which helps for further insight and for further thoughts, of course. And last not least, of course, what you can do. It's always at the end the question what you can do in really to intervene against or with resistance. So right away, I would like to start with the first, and from my perspective also, I would consider it as the most important sentence actually of this presentation. So I would like to challenge actually the concept at all, yeah, because resistance is not existing. Yeah, resistance is an interpretation. Resistance is something what is happening in our mind. So a colleague of mine, Gunther Schmidt, said once, "There is no resistance. There are only needs and information." Yeah, and this is a sentence I like very much because when I hear that somebody talks about resistance or there's somebody resisting something in change, yeah, then I immediately think, no, that's wrong. That's wrong. Yeah. So I would like to challenge the concept at all because from my perspective, it is not always a helpful concept to label somebody as being resistant. Yeah. This does not help anybody actually in change processes. So therefore, I really crossed out this concept in my mind and say, okay, there is a certain behavior probably which I don't like or which is there and so on, and it has reason, but it is not resistance. You know, there is a huge difference between labeling something as this is resistance and observing some interesting behavior or interesting sentence or information. Yeah, so this is the first and very important aspect. Yeah. Of course, I would not neglect the phenomena at all, yeah, or in total, better to say. I would not neglect that there is something which you can call resistance, but I never would call it resistance. Once more, yeah. So when something like resistance is emerging, or you observe something like resistance, make the conclusion. Obviously, there is some inappropriate offer of cooperation. Yeah, there is something what prevents that somebody can say yes, I will do it, or yes, I find this meaningful. There is something in between, which is no resistance, but it is something probably unacceptable or difficult. So resistance, if you stick to the label, yeah, then it expresses primarily something like perceived imbalance or something which is actually not okay, to be very general. But this is a very important difference I would like to highlight in the very beginning. So when we come to the attitude, and by the way, I didn't say it, if you like to pose questions throughout the presentation, please do so. And I will come to it later on, or if I see it, then I can take it up right on the spot, then I will do it as well. So when we come back to the attitude of how to deal with resistance, there are 4 basic principles I like very much, actually. So in terms of action, always act as there is no resistance. So don't behave differently. Don't say, okay, I do this now due to the resistance. Take it really as information. This is the very, very important message. The second is, if you perceive resistance, which says nothing if resistance is actually there or not, then assume, okay, the behavior that somebody is showing is meaningful for the person showing the behavior. So it is some option that somebody choose and obviously considers it as meaningful, and therefore it deserves respect. So this means respect the behavior shown or the behavior you see. This is the second conclusion. So don't discount the behavior you see. And the third aspect is ask yourself actually really the question, is it not meaningful to reinforce the resistance or the behavior you observe? So resistance always releases some forces, or actually binds some forces in many life situations, and therefore it can be really a helpful thought or a helpful action to reinforce. And of course, another aspect is be the flexible part, meaning ask yourself what I can do, and to offer different alternatives, or to offer a different approach, or to re-question some action and challenge some action, and not ask the other to be flexible, and not ask the other to do more on change. So this is kind of the attitude I have developed, and I find meaningful in terms of dealing with resistance. So when it comes then I put in this cartoon actually because I would like to convey two aspects with this. What often is the case, that people are behaving in change processes somehow ambivalent, because they're doing exactly what is shown here. So they participate in a workshop, they are there, they take part in a meeting, they do something, but they say, okay, I'm here against my will, I refuse to cooperate, or I'm here but I'm not here. So I'm sitting in the workshop but I'm not participating, and obviously participating because I'm sitting here. So so this kind of ambivalence with how people behave in such in such settings can often be used actually, because they have made obviously the decision to take part in a certain meeting, in a certain workshop, meaning they show kind of a commitment, they show kind of a goodwill of being there, and on the other hand, they say, no, I'm not here, I refuse. So and making up this ambivalence and taking it up and working with that can be a path for solution. So what kind of working hypothesis I like actually is, there are 4 of them. The first is if you realize something like resistance, and please again never call it resistance in your mind. If you observe interesting behavior of people, then don't be surprised, because actually it is a good sign that there is resistance in change processes, or there is a kind of weird behavior of people throughout change processes, because the other way around, it would be more surprising. So if you realize a change process without some hurdles, without some difficulties, without some probably even maybe resistance, it cannot be a real change process. So not the occurrence of a resistance or strange behavior should be a cause for concern, but the absence of it. So if you don't realize something like that, then you should really ask yourself a question, actually. So is the change not understood? Is it not far enough? Is it not serious enough? What actually do we do here? This is then more concerning, I would say, than the observation of resistance. Yeah. Then resistance, secondly, is always a message in a message. So it's coded information. So that what people say and that what they mean is not the same. Or actually how people behave and what they would like to achieve with this behavior is not the same. So it is always kind of decodification you have to do. You have to read a code which you don't know how it is coded actually, and what's behind. Sometimes or often it lies in emotional factors like anger or even sadness, what is there, and people cannot express that so good. And of course in business context it's not always easy to express such things, and people don't dare to do it and even don't like it. Yeah. So the third working hypothesis, sorry, it was once too far. Okay, I see. There are only two, obviously, in the non-disclosed slide. I think there would be a third and a fourth, if I remember correctly, actually. Another working hypothesis, I can do it by heart actually, is so work with the force. So use the judo principle in order to make the energy, to free up the energy what lies in the resistance. So don't if you feel that people put some pressure on you, don't answer. Do not answer with pressure against them. Yeah. So, but use the energy and take it up. This is much more meaningful in order to deal with resistance. As the third hypothesis. And the fourth hypothesis is do a reinterpretation of the resistance. Yeah. And do something different with the resistance than what is normally expected. So try to be somehow a surprise for people interacting with you. So they should always have the feeling they never should really know what comes next. Yeah, this gives some kind of tension in the relationship and helps people, of course, to be more, in a good way, alerted of how you behave. So when we come now after the hypothesis to the symptoms of resistance, then basically you can go through it like this in a quadrant, like active or passive. You can. I don't want to go through all the details, but I think you have a lot of different possibilities of how you can observe actually resistance, or how resistance is shown by people, either actively in a verbal or in a non-verbal manner, or either passively in a verbal or non-verbal manner. Yeah. Of course, the highest interpretation is passive and non-verbal. So sickness, or being absent. Actually, you can interpret it. Okay, there is a reason behind, but you probably don't know really the reason. Yeah. So it is a really far away hypothesis to say, okay, this is a kind of a resistance, what is there. Yeah, so it's highly dangerous to use the nonverbal and passive symptoms or signals of resistance as, okay, this is resistance now. Yeah, if you realize on the other side verbal active attack, like aggressive accusations or threats, even polemics, stubborn formalism, whatever it is on the left high corner, then it is more likely that actually resistance is behind in a way. But the best example is here counter argumentation. Yeah, if somebody is counter arguing, this can be resistance, but it can be simply exchanging opinions. Yeah, so a counter argumentation is normally something what you realize when people are interested, when people engage in a discussion, when people are fighting with arguments. Actually, this is a good sign of engagement. Actually, and is not a sign of resistance, but it can be one. Yeah, but normally you don't consider it, and this is exactly the difficulty in decipher resistance. Yeah, and again, I would like to repeat it because I find it important. If you realize resistance, if you see or interpret resistance, act always in a way that there would be no resistance. Yeah. So, how can you diagnose resistance? I think it is worthwhile because there are situations where resistance is there. I don't want to neglect the topic at all, as I said. Yeah, but therefore, it is interesting to have different perspectives on resistance. Yeah, so one can be the functional perspective. So you can ask yourself, okay, what does the person in question gain out of the resistance? Yeah, or in other ways, what are negative effects actually? Yeah, what is the function of the resistance? The other thing is, okay, when does it occur? In which situations is the resistance there, or when not? So is the resistance always there when the boss is not inside, but it's never there if the boss is inside? Or is it always there when marketing is in the meeting? Or is it never there when marketing is in the meeting? Then next question could be, so is it future-oriented? Or in which way is it future-oriented? What kind of future or non-desired future people are imagining or are thinking of when they are resisting? Yeah, is this future image right? Is this image of the desired future or non-desired future a right one? Then what kind of form or shape does the resistance has? Like we showed it on the previous page, of course, it's important. Then in which context is it there or is it not there? Yeah, is it always in terms of when we're discussing impact on marketing of a post-merger integration, for instance, then it's there. Or is it only there if we're discussing internal topics? Or is it only there when we discuss aspects of a specific department or specific people, whatever it is? So what is the context in which the resistance is occurring? And of course, it can be also relational. So is it tied to a specific relationship? Does, for instance, the client not like my person actually? Yeah, or not like a person in his or her department, and therefore is resisting there because he has to work even stronger together with somebody he doesn't like. So this kind of six-fold questions concerning the diagnosis of resistance is helpful also to open up a bit again the mind. And when we go further to the next part, I would like to discuss with you is that the resistance is part of a, as I call it, a psychological transfer process. Yeah, of course, everybody knows from us that there are change hurdles. That change sometimes is an effort. That change is not welcome, and people actually of course, ready to change, and people are also used to change, because the evolutionary principle of how to survive actually has a lot to do with change. So change is, in one perspective, part of our DNA, as human beings now speaking, and on the other hand, it is also kind of counterintuitive, because it's not so convenient. Not to change, people normally like more, because it creates simply more comfort at the moment. In the future, maybe it's different, because if you invest something, of course, you can earn in the future, but now you have to do the effort. And the psychological transfer process is referring to three aspects. So the first are the client system itself, or the department in question. I speak from the client, of course, as an external consultant, but it can also be internally, of course, the department in question that has to change or something. Then, of course, it can be also part of the relationships that has been established and which are difficult. And last not least, of course, from our perspective, we as consultants can also be the problem. Yeah. Good. So when we look first on the client part, yeah. So let us assume the problem actually lies really in the client system. Then it can be, that probably people or the system at itself creates stress because it's irritated, and this is as well a good sign and normal also in change processes. But there is also then coming normally the change crisis. So old identities, old roles, old routines are defended or are fought for. So the future and the losses are threatening, and of course people try to avoid it either by gaining more time, or even just ignore it or whatever. And of course it can also be necessary to go through a mourning process, and to digest a kind of a sadness which is created by the change, but is not specifically addressed, I would say, normally. Yeah. So what can we do, or what can you do if you facilitate the change process as an internal project lead, or as an internal consultant, or as an internal responsible for? Of course, you should do the analysis as I've shown it, then explain yourself, and also do some accompany, of course. Mourning and loss rituals are something what can help. Yeah, I once had an example that there was an IT system which has to be shut down, and a lot of the engineers have invested, I would say, the best years in their career in this system. And it was better. It was part of a post-merger integration process. And of course, the group of concerns taken over the smaller company said, okay, we have to install and to implement our system worldwide. And therefore, the smaller country has to swallow it. They admitted that the smaller country solution was technically better, actually, than the system they had, but it was a worldwide system, and they have to use it worldwide and roll out and implement it worldwide. So, but what the department lead did, the department lead did was putting up, set up a meeting, and in this meeting he darkened the room, and put a small paper coffin on the table, and said, and the others were shocked, and what are you doing here? And he said, yes, that's the purpose of the meeting. So we have to say bye-bye. We have to bury our system now. Yeah. And it was kind of a strange ritual. Yeah. But actually he has to repeat this meeting because other people having not the chance participating would also like to have such a meeting. So this was a kind of an experience that mourning and loss rituals are important. Then recognize accomplishments from the past, of course, to really have a look back and to say bye-bye, and to their own history, and to open a new chapter is very important. Then also to reframe or focus on the bottom line. So actually come on, people, what is actually the case, and go a step to the bottom line and say, this is actually only the thing. Yeah. Of course, change is always, but this is another topic of how to manage change, actually is always dedicated to having a desired future, having a new vision, having some attractive picture, image of the future, which you would like to go for. Yeah. And of course, sometimes it's necessary to encourage people and to say, okay, you will do it. Yeah, you have gone through so important changes throughout your individual life, but also through your professional life. So what actually can be the reason that this will not work out? Okay, so this is the client in the focus. When it is the focus or the root of the resistance is lying in the relationship, of course, what you can see there is that probably potential losers begin to fight about their territory, about their status, about their influence, about their money, about their power. Yeah, power struggles, conflicts are emerging. Also, struggle for pole position. Yeah, in post-merger integration. If I keep this example, you merge two departments. Of course, there can only be one department head at the end. Often that's the case, and actually then there is the struggle for pole positioning going on. What you can do there, from my perspective, is to first of all establish a safe framework where this can dealt with, where these questions can really be addressed. If there is a room for discussion on, let me say, finding a joint solution, sometimes it's simply better to decide, and decide, okay, it is a management decision, and say, okay, we vote for manager A, and we give manager B a compensation and a farewell ticket, but it's then decided and not a long process. Can also be good. Yeah, of course, engaging in discussion means you have to find out the needs and the different positions behind. Yeah, here sometimes it is interesting that you differ between interests and positions. So I would like to give a short example about what I mean with that. Let us assume there are two sisters and they are struggling about one orange. Both of the sisters would like to have it, and normally this struggle is solved in a way that there is a compromise, and you put the orange in two halves and then separate it and say, okay, that's the compromise. Each sister gets a half of the orange. But this is actually the way how you do it when you don't differ between position and interest, because the position you take in a discussion is only one way to achieve your interest, or to push through your interest, And there are several ways, and therefore it makes sense to differ between positions which you are taking in a discussion and your interests. So in that case, actually, if you would have asked the sisters what do they need it for, the orange, then probably one answered, I would like to eat it, of course. And the second could have answered, I need the surface because I would like to bake a cake. It's Christmas time, And this is a different interest behind the position. I need the orange. I know this is very simplified example now, but take it as a metaphor actually, and try to differentiate between position and interest behind the position. And other things I said, management intervention as decisions. Last not least, as a third part, and the third party also in the game, actually, the consultant himself has to ask several questions. Of course, if there is resistance coming up, of course, you have to think about, do we have designed an unrealistic process? Is it too fast? Do we have... did we make a mistake concerning integration of some stakeholders or not integrating them? Or probably it's simply the counsel and the client the system doesn't fit together, actually, can also be. Or important problems have not been yet identified, and they are there lying, but we haven't seen them. Yeah. Of course, then, okay, be very flexible and do a redesign of the change process, more detailed investigation, of course, further interviews, diagnosis, questionnaires, whatever can help to gain more information as well. Of course, sometimes it's good to simply apologize for a mistake which happened. Yeah, of course, it can also be helpful. And also sometimes you have to replace people and change people in the system to make better relationship. Yeah. Okay, so this was the third aspect, the third range. There are two more slides I would like to discuss about. The first one is some useful questions, actually. Again, if you realize there is resistance, so yeah, ask yourself, you can go through the questions here. What does the person want to achieve, actually? What does she or he need to be satisfied? Yeah. What does the resistance attitude protect against? What else the colleague would have to do if not being resistant? And things like that. So what would be the impact of a cooperative attitude instead of resistance? So this is always a good question as well. And finally, actually what you can do now. Yeah. So options for dealing with resistance in general are, okay, first of all, you can ignore it, and please consider this as well as an opportunity and as an option which is there. Yeah. You don't have to take, as this, like conflict management, you don't have to take up every conflict. You don't have to take up every resistance. So you can disregard it, you can ignore it, and just go over it. Yeah. One example, in a workshop I did together with a colleague, there was also a lot of rumor, discussion, a lot of, I would say, yeah, question marks, and somehow also bad feelings. And one of the participants raised their hand and said, okay, is it allowed to ask questions? And my colleague said simply no. and has gone further in the program. Yeah. And of course, the participant was like, okay, there's not allowed to ask a question here. No, we go on now in the program. And it was accepted. It was accepted. The workshop went well. Workshop went good. Yeah. But it was also a surprise to me that such a, let me say, hard intervention can also be successful. Of course, interpret and analyze the resistance. I think we have discussed or have given some ideas on that. How can that be done? Of course, confront and face the resistance. So fight the resistance and be open about it and go into the struggle. And then, of course, you can also use it and work with the resistance. Yeah. Some examples more there in the next slide. So, of course, first of all, you can reinforce, so left bottom angle, reinforce and reward the resistance. So if you're doing workshops and somebody says, this will not work, and this is bad, and this is no, and I'm against, or whatever it is, and it's not only the first time, also probably the second time, then say, okay, super comment. We need these forces which are not in favor of the change. They are totally important, yeah, because that makes us aware of what we have not considered yet in a way which is super, which we have to focus more. Yeah, so it is highly appreciated from us as facilitators, moderators, manager to give us the utmost impression and intensity of those aspects. So please do it openly and really do it whenever you can. So I would like to invent, let me say, the yellow card. If somebody has a critical question, a critical aspect to discuss or to raise up, please raise the hand and say, okay, I would like to use the yellow card. And the often we have it, the better it is. So I appreciate it a lot. Do something like this, and you will realize this framing or this statement probably leads to it. It's not so interesting anymore. Yeah, to be resistant, to be resisting or to show resistance. Not because the moderator, the manager say, "Hey, this is super," yeah, and then probably it's not so appealing anymore. Then support and encourage the resistance. Actually, I did a combination of the both. Then redefine or reinterpret the resistance. So ask some questions like, would it be the same if you would work in a different department? Would it be the same if you would have a different job? Would it be the same if it would be a different topic and things like that? Or what sometimes also can be a very good opportunity is or option actually is to disarm the resistance. So just give some information which disarms the resistance. So either by figures or either by assumptions. Sometimes people have a lot of assumptions behind some resisting opinions, yeah, and you can easily sometimes clarify them by giving the right information. Okay, this would be some options. Then furthermore, focus on the power and the energy of the resistance. So ask people like, how much energy on a scale from probably from 1 to 10, how much energy is in that what you have said right now? Is it 9? Is it 10, which is the utmost, or is it just 2 or 0? And try to, let me say, scale also the power and the energy of the resistance in order to make it to balance it a little bit. Then sometimes it's good to use metaphors and stories also, yeah. So try to reframe resistance, and this comes back actually to the first aspect, like redefine or reinterpret. What I mean with that actually is just one last story, not being too long. One last story is, there are two friends going along, and one is complaining about his wife. He says, my wife always takes so long in shopping, and I should accompany her, and I don't like it. And she really needs a long time to decide a bag or a pullover or a shirt, whatever it is. So it's really boring for me. Yeah. And his friend is listening and thinks a while, and then says, okay, well, your wife is deciding very carefully, obviously. Yeah. And under these circumstances, you should be actually really happy that she has chosen you as her husband out of all the men in the world. And this is a kind of reframing, of course, because somebody is focusing a specific behavior in a very negative way, and to put it in another frame or to put it in another angle, then probably the same behavior looks much better. Okay, and this is like also the other examples, transfer resistance to another person. So would you ask yourself, would you behave exactly the same thing if somebody else would show the same behavior, or another department would take up or bring up the same argument and things like that? And ask the person again to hold the position of the resistance and to go back in the resistance posture. So when you frame it positively, the people should stay in the resistance, it gets immediately unattractive. Okay, so having said that, I would now end my presentation and go up for the questions actually.
So thank you very much, Tony, for this very interesting presentation. I think we've already had one question referring to slide number 7. If you maybe want to go back to that slide in answering that question. So we have one in the chat, please. For everyone watching, feel free to post your comments or questions in the chat. Of course, if you have different experiences from your own changes or other experiences with change resistance, I'm sure Tony will be happy to also reply to comments of yours. Thank you from my side. Tony, if you are ready to answer the question.
Yeah, actually, I have problems to see the question. In my
Let me,
I don't have.
okay.
No,
I
now it's
just,
there. Okay. Okay, so thanks, Simon. Yeah. So, which of those symptoms of resistance do you see as most dangerous for the change process, or are they all equal threatening? Okay, thanks a lot. Very good question. I would not consider them as being the same, actually. Yeah, so there are slightly differences in them. I would say actually the passive ones are more dangerous in general. Yeah, because they are harder to detect, they are harder to interpret, but they are often more saturated with aggressive energy, actually. Yeah, so if it when we go on the right corner, yeah, if there is absence, inner emigration, or sickness shown as behavior, this is not so easy to grasp. Yeah, what is the behavior? What is the resistance behind being absent? Yeah, because you cannot talk to people; they are absent, yeah, or they are sick, or they say they are sick. Yeah, so this is one of the hardest things. If you have counter argumentation, you are already in contact with a specific person, and therefore it's much easier actually to handle it or to do something about it. Yeah. And also, of course, non-verbal and passive is the hardest, and then go up passive and verbal, and then again non-verbal, and verbal is the lightest in being active. Yeah. So this would be my actually my answer to the question, if helpful.
thank you so much. Yeah, very interesting question. Thank you. Thank you for the questionnaire. I also have one or the other question. I recently read a quite interesting article in terms of change resistance and resilience. We've all gone through 2 years of a lot of constant changes that just needed to be implemented. There were no choices, not a lot of space for considering personal opinions to some extent, and then that time really led apparently to change fatigue, to increased uncertainty. Um, are there any recommendations, or what would be your comments to that, where you say, well, how can you deal with people who are literally just tired of changes now after
Mm.
all of that time, and there are simply changes that need to be done, but then on the other hand you just have people who maybe even realize the need for the change, but literally just are longing for some time of stability.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, that's also a very good question, Simon. And it's often actually the reality you are describing. It's not an example. It's not an example. It's not an exception, actually. Yeah. So I would consider it more as being the rule. Yeah. Yeah. How I deal with it, or how we deal with it, actually is give the people a little time to exhale. Yeah, so the people actually can drop down their mental fatigue or the physical fatigue. Yeah, that actually the reality can become real. Yeah, this sounds a bit weird, but actually one of the most important change rules or preconditions of change is actually acknowledge the reality. Yeah. So simply acknowledge the reality in which you are and listen to this reality, and make up your mind what is then possible or not possible, and reframe your process. Yeah. This would be my my recommendation, because if you are not connected to the reality which people are feeling, yeah, then you will never succeed with any change. Yeah. And how to regain energy? The question is how to regain energy. Of course, you can do all the things we know. It's reprioritizing. It is, giving the people simply a longer weekend free or some days off, and give them really the chance to get fresh energy. Of course, you can always exchange people and try, if there are people can do the job which are in a more, let me say, in a better state of energy. Yeah. But the most important thing is acknowledge the reality and then find sources for recreating the spirit. Yeah, and recreating the spirit, there are two major sources from my perspective. The one is address the purpose. So why are people here? Actually, there's a reason why people are joining a company and why they are still here. Yeah, and not only, okay, I have to earn my money normally. Yeah, but actually I would like to achieve something. So try to refoster the purpose and to align people through the purpose or establish the common purpose. And the other thing is address their identity, their professional identity as a physicist, as a pilot, as a whatever they are. Yeah. Recheck their professional identity and also boost the identity probably of the department or the company as a whole. But identity and purpose are the two sources of, I would say, eternal energy.
Thank you so much. Given we have one more question that was just posted. It's
Yeah.
a rather long one. Let me read it to you and quickly put it on the screen. Love your reframing analogy about the man complaining about his wife. Reminds me of a comment a friend of mine made about what's been going on with Twitter and Elon Musk. People have been outing the decisions he's been making recently as questionable, but Musk made those decisions when he built and led Tesla and SpaceX. Do you think this is just a case of people are just focusing on the bad?
Okay. No, actually, I don't think that's just the case. The people focusing on the back. I think the case and also the person of Elon Musk is so ambivalent, yeah, that it's not probably the best example for this. And do you know? I know probably, or I assume, what is probably behind the question of Iggy. It is, let me say, that talking about bad things, yeah, is much more interesting than talking about good things, because it's more exciting. It's more, you can you can share more probably new insights. It's more probably astonishing. If something went well, yeah, that's okay, that's also nice, but it's always more interesting discussing those things, yeah, because of two reasons. The one is you can immediately have a better idea of how to do it differently. Yeah. And this is, let me say, refostering your self-esteem, probably on the one hand. And the other hand is why we like to do it is it's sometimes the case simply to defocus from our problems or defocus from ourselves. Yeah, because focusing towards their own change, it's much easier to talk about Elon Musk and to talk about Twitter or whatever than turn the arrow into your direction and okay, how is it here? Yeah.
Very true. Very, very true. Thank you so much. Also, answering our questions. Looking at the time, I would have many more questions, but I will refrain for the sake of time. Thank you so much, Tony, for committing your time to the Change Institute and to our viewers and attendees here of the webinar. Thank you very much.
Very welcome. Thanks again for the invitation, Simon.
Of course, thank you. So thank you to all of you also who are still watching. And in case you would like to receive more information on our upcoming webinars as well as the Change Institute, please feel free to sign up to our mailing list. There will be a link leading to our sign up form in the comment section any second now. Additionally, you can, of course, also reach out to us to info@change-institute.org. As I mentioned just now, we have already lined up the upcoming webinars for you, and I think they are very, very interesting. Starting in the new year, on January 12th, we will have Paul Shelby, change management lead from PepsiCo and former change management consultant from Deloitte, who will be talking about AONA, which is adaptive organizational network analysis, as a new way of really bringing in data to kickstart change initiatives. The next webinars will be then on February 1st with Greg Keller, Global Head of Change Management at Organizational Transformation as WTW. And then on the 22nd of February with two speakers, actually. Very excited for a bit of a change up in the webinar setting here with Peter Stewart and Sandra Egloff from Cognizant. The last two will be together with our partners from the Institute for Mergers, Acquisitions, and Alliances. Hence the topic related to restructuring and M&A. So I hope, of course, that the webinar was as interesting to you as it was to me. I certainly took away a lot of new insights, new perspectives on change resistance. Not calling it resistance anymore from now on. And so thank you very much for joining us today. And I'm looking forward to seeing you as participants and your questions and comments on January 12th. Until then, happy holidays and a good new year.